When I learned in April that the famous theologian James Cone had died, I immediately felt inspired to add a few of his books to my reading list, to kind of read him as a tribute to his life. Cone was a pioneer in Black liberation theology, applying the thinking of those revolutionary Central American Catholics to the African American experience in the United States. He wrote on the theology of Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, and about the theological underpinnings of African American religious and cultural expression, especially in writing about the spirituals and the blues. So earlier this summer, I picked up one of his books, a book that was the culmination of James Cone's career as a theologian, a book provocatively titled The Cross and the Lynching Tree. Cone's basic thesis is this: that the crucifixion of Jesus is best understood as a lynching, and that each lynching in the United States from the 1870s or so to the 1950s or so is best understood as a crucifixion. His book is partially an indictment against white theologians and white Christians who largely ignored or were indifferent to or tacitly supported or even participated in the legacy of lynching in our country, while at the same time paradoxically and perversely worshiping at the feet of a lynched man. And at the same time, this book was also an insightful exploration of the way in which African American religion and culture responded to the barbarity and brutality and ever-present threat of the lynch mob. And it was that part of cultural strength and response that struck me. And so I was struck about how Cone's book veered into an extended meditation on the blues, of all things. Cone writes, "How did Southern rural blacks survive the terrors of this era? Self-defense and even protest were out of the question, but there were other forms of resistance. For most blacks, it was the blues and religion that offered the chief weapons of resistance at the juke joints on Friday and Saturday night, and at churches on Sunday mornings and evening weeknights. They affirmed their humanity and fought back against dehumanization. Both religion and the blues offered sources of hope that there was more to life than what one encountered daily in this world." Cone writes, "The blues was an individual's expression of a cultural defiance against white supremacy, a stubborn refusal to be defined by it. The blues prepared people to fight for justice by giving them a cultural identity that made them fully human, and thus ready to struggle." As I read those words earlier this year, I thought two thoughts to myself. First, I thought, I really want to preach about that. And second, how in the world do I preach about that? So I want to tell you what I want to do this morning, what I'm going to be doing in this sermon. When I talk to you about learning to sing the blues, please be clear that what I'm not doing is teaching a singing workshop to you. That would not go well. I also, though, don't want to give a lecture of the history of blues music and describe to you the relative merits of Robert Johnson, Billie Holiday, Leadbelly, Lena Horne, Muddy Waters, and B.B. King. That wouldn't go well either. What I'm trying to do this morning, and you'll be the judge of how well I do it, is on one hand, putting the blues something way over there and just sort of describing it as some object with me as the objectifier. I don't want to be an objectifier. And at the same time, I don't want to get too close. I don't want to take something as mine that doesn't belong to me. I don't want to be inappropriate. I don't want to appropriate. And let me be honest, because when I thought about this sermon, it was very clear to me that the blues do not belong to me. I want to walk this fine line. I'm cautioned and humbled by what African-American intellectual Amiri Baraka once said. He said that while African-Americans invented rock and roll, it was possible for white people to play rock music. That while African-Americans invented jazz, it's possible for white people to play jazz. But Amiri Baraka said that blues could only be played. Cornel West observed that it's possible to be a classical music prodigy, a rock and roll prodigy, or even a jazz prodigy. But Cornel West says there's no such thing, there's never been such a thing as a blues prodigy. Because blues is adult music and requires a certain kind of experience. And that may be true, but I want to tell you what inspired me, what so inspired me about Cohn's writing about the blues. What inspired me was the confluence of several things. And I'm going to go into each of them in further detail, but I want to tell you what they are. First, I was inspired. I found inspiring the unflinching reality and honesty that is present in blues music. Cohn says that the blues are grounded in historical reality. Bluesman Henry Townsend said, "When I sing the blues, I tell the truth." That seemed important to me. Could all stand to have some truth tellers. I was also inspired by the spirit of defiance in the blues, that sense that the blues say, "You may have taken away everything from me, but you will not take my humanity. That is the one thing you cannot take." And that stubborn refusal to give up one's humanity, that seemed really important to me too. I was also inspired by just the sheer humanity of the blues. It's not always humanity at its best, but it is a gritty humanity, an honest humanity, with vulnerabilities and joy and humor and sexuality and beauty. All of that in this kind of jumbled up humanity, warts and all. And that seems important to me too. And finally, I was inspired by the kind of hope present in the blues, which seems to me this worldly hope, a life-giving, life-saving kind of hope. B.B. King said, "Blues is B.B. King. Yes, I've been a crusader for it for 21 years. Without blues, I don't think I could live very long. Not that I think I'm going to live a long time anyway." He said this earlier in his life. "But I don't think I could live even that long if I stopped playing, or if I couldn't be with the people I love so, the people who helped me so much. I couldn't live. I try to give them a message. I try hard." That life-giving essence seems really important to me. So when I talk about learning to sing the blues, this is what I mean. Naming reality with unflinching honesty. A spirit of defiance which allows you to retain a sense of your own humanity in the face of that difficult reality. An honest awareness of the human condition, even with its warts and blemishes. And holding on to some life-giving, life-affirming hope. The blues may be the greatest artistic expression of these four qualities, but I don't think that they're the only art form to do these four things. Other music does it. James Cohn, whose book was published in 1971, just as hip-hop was a form that was an oral tradition, not yet recording, no one had recorded hip-hop yet, said that he believed that hip-hop would be the contemporary articulation of the blues. I think music that comes out of the Irish experience, Irish folk music, Danny Boy, does these four things. I think the music of Appalachia, music of the labor movement, Woody Guthrie, do these four things. There may be forms of art that aren't music. There may be forms of theater and dance and literature that do it as well. I think in terms of the world of painting, I think Picasso's Guernica may come closest to doing those four things. I think the Diary of Anne Frank does those four things, and the poetry of Langston Hughes absolutely does. When I talk about learning to sing the blues, I don't mean imitation. Because here is the deal. That while the blues arose out of a particular history, the history of an enslaved and stolen and kidnapped people, with their identity stolen and humanity denied, and facing violence and murder and theft, and the denial of rights and the denial of humanity and lynching, while the blues arose out of a particular form of brutality and barbarity, the truth is that suffering is not exclusive. Suffering may differ in form, degree, and severity, but suffering is universal. I'm a universalist in the sense that I believe that no one gets through life without suffering. As the great theologian Michael Stipe, he's the lead singer of the band R.E.M., not a blues man, saying everybody hurts. And since everybody hurts, maybe we ought to learn something from the blues. And the things that we might learn from it are those four things. First, what we might learn is the ability to face into the reality of pain with unflinching honesty, to tell the truth about pain. If you can say anything about the blues, you can say that they are honest about suffering and about injustice. The blues don't say, well, things aren't really that bad. They don't say that suffering is a choice or an illusion. They don't say you're just imagining things. They are honest. They say you're in pain. Be with that pain. That pain is real. I believe that this is a spiritual lesson. It is, I believe, a sign of spiritual maturity to be able to be present to, responsive to, and honest about suffering as it occurs in our lives and in other lives. The second thing that blues teaches us is to practice defiance in the face of forces that would deny our humanity or deny another's humanity. Bluesman Big Bill Bruesney sang a song called "When Will I Get to Be Called a Man?" He sang, "When I was born in the world, this is what happened to me. I was never called a man, and now I'm 53. I wonder when I will be called a man, or do I have to wait till I'm 93? These lines zealously insist on humanity. These lines echo the sanitation workers' strike in Memphis in 1968, where they carried signs that said, "I am a man." These lines echo the proclamation that Black Lives Matter. The blues are about refusing to be dehumanized. A third thing that we might learn is to cultivate a more honest and vulnerable awareness of the human condition. Let me see if I can say what I mean by that. In the blues, grace is not earned. Never said good things happen to me because I earned them. In the blues, there is this sense in which everybody makes mistakes, everybody suffers, everybody has things happen to them that they don't deserve. Everybody makes difficult choices and bad choices, and the blues, I think, humanizes this. The blues would never hear of talking about a deserving poor. Blues would never hear about talking about good people and bad people. The blues has an honesty about the human condition and an insistence that we are all vulnerable. And the fourth thing that I learned from the blues as James Cone describes it. First, the fourth thing I think that the blues can teach us is that it's important to hold on to a kind of life-giving, life-saving, this-worldly vision of hope. An old blues song goes, going down to the railroad track, lay my head on the track. Going down to the railroad track, I'll lay my head on the track. But if I see the train coming, I'm going to jerk it back. Richard Wright wrote of the endemic capacity to live. Blues is about survival. A couple of years ago, Cornel West was the keynote speaker at the Unitarian Universalist General Assembly. He ended his lecture by riffing about the blues. And he said this to the National Gathering of Unitarian Universalists, 3,000 strong in that auditorium. He said that if we are going to be serious about facing the catastrophes of our world, the moral and political catastrophes, the spiritual and economic catastrophes, the environmental catastrophes, he said if we are going to be serious about facing them, we need to decide to learn something from the blues people. Quote, that's what he said. We need to decide to learn something from the blues people. What do you mean by that? He even said, to save democracy, it is necessary to listen to the blues people. What did he mean by that? Here's what I think he meant. Learning to face the reality of pain and suffering, refusing to accept dehumanization, gaining a more holistic understanding of the human condition, and having hope that is present in the endemic capacity to survive. If we learn those things, perhaps we will learn to sing the blues. I am still learning. Let's close in song together. I invite you to stand in body or in spirit as we sing about waking up this morning.